Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I have decided to take this fight for democracy. And in this video, we're going to be talking politics. We're going to be covering MAGA, Trump, issues surrounding MAGA and Trump. And I have a very, very special guest with me today, a young man that has blazed TikTok politics, a young man that has said he is not afraid of what is happening because he believes and loves democracy and progressiveness. My man TJ, take a look at this guy, and then when we get into it, you'll meet him.
I need you to listen to me very carefully. I stand by every single word I made in that video you're referencing. Like, Donnie is caked out, my guy. Look at this Trump truck he's carrying around. You can't deny it. Every year, women pay surgeons an ungodly amount of money to artificially make their butts that big, and somehow Donald Trump has managed to do it all on his own. So I give credit where credit's due. Like, if Donald Trump's goal was to have a curvaceous feminine ass that's the envy of women all around the world, then mission accomplished. I'll die on that hill. I can't take that away.
I'm up early for the dealers come out. Everybody is outside till the killers come out. You ain't eating, you just act full. I'm impactful. Dozen funerals in a month. I got that pull. I will give it to niggas in all rap forms. Ignatius out right now on all platforms.
Man, I was not ready for that. That is, God, that's funny. Of all the videos you could have shown, it was the one where I'm talking about the shapely ass of our commander-in-chief. That is wild. I love that, though. I love that. That is
Y'all, I'm crying.
That's so
this
great.
Is TJ, the owner, the proprietor of Power is Taken, Not Given on TikTok. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for inviting me on for this project. What we can get off the ground. I love talking about politics and media. You talk about media and stuff, everything too. I can't wait for that. I think we have a lot of good times ahead. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, audience, show this man some love and please subscribe to him on TikTok. Like I said before, if you are not into politics, politics will get into you one way or the other one. So why not get advised by people who believe in facts, we believe in the science, and we believe in citing our sources and letting you know what is real and what is fake. We're going to jump right on into it because this has been a week full of politics. TJ, let me give you two choices and I'll let you pick which way you want to go.
Okay.
Where you want to go. So I'm going to give you the full list and then I'll let you pick one. I've got colleges fight back. I've got the role of religion. I've got white racist and entitled white people. I've got taking Americans. I've also got one mayor calls Trump a terrorist. And last but not least, China is making memes of JD Vance, and the JD stands for Just Drag Queen JD.
I love that. I would want to go with religion first. That's kind of one of my wheelhouses. I do love that. I do want to interject before we start, though, because I know I'll forget it, if you don't mind. You mentioned that people, if you aren't into politics, that politics are into you. I love that. That is a good line right there, because unfortunately, and I understand why this is the case, you'll talk to most people. Most people don't pay that much attention to politics. And for that, I don't blame them. You have a certain amount of time throughout your day. You're busy, you have work, you have kids, you got bills to pay and everything. But there's a temptation that a lot of folks fall into in which they detach from politics completely and don't pay attention at all. And they kind of wear it as a badge of honor, saying, oh, I'm not into politics. Politics, I don't really care about that. I don't like politics at all. I don't pay attention. And listen, if you want to be that person, you can. Like, no one can stop you. But even if you're not into politics, I guarantee your bank is into politics. Your landlord is into politics. The sheriff, the police chief is into politics. Like, everyone who has authority over your life, the people who structure how your every day is going to go from now until the day you die, guarantee they are into politics. Why would you cede that power over to them so willingly and happily? There's no reason to brag about that. So I know it's difficult. I know it's complex for a lot of folks, but it's important to do.
Yeah, well said, man. And look, you can riff however you want. This is a free balling place.
Sure.
The only thing we check here is whatever you say, it needs to be fact. We're not conjecture. We're telling you the facts here, because even with the way MAGA lies, you still can whip their ass with fact. Let them be delusional.
Yeah.
We know what's really going on. And everything TJ said is absolutely right. Most of you all have kids. Politics is dealing with their schools. One whether it's charter, whether it's public, it's somebody's politics. And right now, one thing that they're doing to politicize school is they're taking the real history of this country out of the books so that more people can wind up being MAGA or being Republicans and not have sympathy for the plight that marginalized groups have gone through in this country. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand politics. And TJ, before we get started, you know I got to do the usual thing that the people love on my channel, politicking while black. This is a segment where you get to riff on any petty grievances you have while being black. And if you're not black, you can call it politicking while living under MAGA. TJ, I'll let you go first, and then I'll give you mine. That happened just yesterday when I was out with my daughter.
So this is about politics, right? It has to be a politics.
No,
Or is it just any? Okay, good.
It can be any petty grievance you have.
Good.
Break the ice.
All right. So my petty grievance dates back as far back as I can remember, and that's something. It's an old Chris Rock bit where Chris Rock was talking about Colin Powell being Secretary of Defense or Secretary of State, I think he was. And he said how annoying he found it that news reporters or, people talking about the administration would say, that Colin Powell, he speaks so well. He's so articulate. He speaks so well. It is just an incessantly grating backhanded compliment that people throw out. It's like, oh, wow, look, here's one that can talk. Wow, how did this happen? It is one of the most upsetting things I've ever seen. And also, once again, like black people, we know, you can distinguish a legitimate compliment from, wow, hey, that was an erudite, a presentation you gave there. And wow, you're so articulate. That one really gets me. That really bugs me. I hate that.
Yeah. It would be okay if this was something said to everybody.
Yes.
But it seems to be more highlighted and prevalent in black people, as if to say that our preset is we speak Ebonics.
Mm-hmm.
Last I checked, there are way more white people cussing than black people on any given Sunday. Which brings me to my petty grievance, politicking while being black.
All right.
This happened yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. It's Good Friday. I'm out taking my daughter and my son, and both of them are under the age of 5, to the Science Center in Greensboro, North Carolina. Because we want to see the animals, we want to see the museums, we want to see the sport. We want to have a good time. I want to educate my kids. I want them to know that their dad loves them and is into science. He spends time with them. We get there, and since school's out, there are no parks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the petty grievance I have is this. Karens being passive aggressive until you check their ass.
Oh boy.
So since all the parks are taken, we're facing this way. There's a lady on this way about to leave, and we're facing this way. So there's a Karen in a van full of kids and her husband who's sitting in the passenger side. They're facing us. Her signal light is on this way. So I'm thinking, okay, you're going to park over there some damn where. So I turn my signal on for this person that's about to leave. And I'm sitting there waiting. And Karen, all of a sudden, flips me the bird and then starts doing shit like this, snapping her neck as if she went to the school of neck snapping. That's my effing part. All while her turn signal was going this way. and then I think the husband realized, because I seen a hand go like, and then she turned her signal on this way. Now, me being a very nice guy, I casually rolled my car right beside her window and rolled that shit down. And I said, ma'am, and I'm being calm with you. Mm-hmm. If you realize your turn, this is what I said to her, because my daughter's in the back seat listening to everything. I said, do you realize your turn signal was on that way? Well, I've been waiting here for this part all damn day. I said, ma'am, what was the effing finger about? What was all this finger wagging about when you got a car full of damn school children?
Jesus.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I'm really waiting for the husband to say something.
Yes,
All of a sudden now you're sorry. You didn't mean to do the shit because you thought I wasn't going to roll up there and say nothing. And then I told her, you can have the damn park. I don't want you to break your other finger trying to give somebody the finger. And so I left and took my kids elsewhere. But that's my petty grievance, ladies and gentlemen. Karens being passive aggressive, but really don't want to smoke. That's my petty grievance for today.
No, they don't. You step up to them, and bullies are cowards. It's one of the weird counterintuitive things about reality that the people generally are who are the loudest and most obnoxious, and puff their chest the most, have the most to hide, and are the most insecure. It is really unfortunate.
Yeah, just like little Chihuahua dogs. They got to compensate for insecurities and not being that big, whatever it is.
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, please post us your petty grievances. It don't matter what it is. Politicking while being under MAGA or politicking while being black. Give us your grievances. TJ, which one of these you want first?
Well, religion. Well, we'll go with, I think religion. Yep, that's the one I want.
All right.
Can't wait.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're having a huge issue in this country where white nationalism has married itself to Christian evangelicalism. And I'm getting ready to show you a clip of a pastor who is using religion as propaganda to get people to believe in the bull job Trump is doing. And then the very next clip, you will see a student who has nothing to do with this pastor that's not even of the American descent has come here and bought into this bull job. Take a look at this, and then me and TJ will get back to you.
Look, I'm sorry your 401k's gone down. But quit whining. It's not about you. It's about the young kids in here and the grandkids and the kids that haven't been born yet. The ones we've mutilated. Yeah, perfect timing. And if you've made it out of your mother's womb without being ripped apart like you are in California and flushed into the sewer systems of the state, but of course we harvest your organs. We make Nazi Germany look like Girl Scouts. If you manage to make it out of the womb the minute you're born, you now have unbelievable debt leveled on you while we've bought junk from China because it's good in our lifetime. And now we get a little pinch to make it right and reset it for their generations, and we're upset. If you want to be great in the kingdom of God, you are called to be a servant. Suck it up. A little bit of suffering in your portfolio.
I voted for Trump.
Okay, and what was the number one reason for voting for Trump?
Personally, it doesn't matter who would be the person who is running for, as long as they're in the more conservative side, on the right side, because I lean more towards the Republican side, and it just aligns with my beliefs. And just personally, if it would have been anybody else, I would have still voted for the Republican side of the party, and it just aligns more with my religion and my personal beliefs. And personally, for the Democrat side, I just don't, personally agree with that.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you feel like at all bothered as a Christian that Trump is a convicted rapist?
I feel like I do personally, because, it's not what a person should do, and a person that should be as like someone leading our country. But, what happened, and I really can't do anything about it. And I just wouldn't vote for the Democratic Party either way.
Lord have mercy. I'm going to have to say a word that the young people say, TJ. The fuck? TJ, please make this make sense for me. I'll give you the floor first, brother.
No problem. So I will try my best to make it make sense. I can only do so much, But with the first clip of the preacher talking about everyone needs to suck it up and stop complaining about their 401ks. This is bigger than you. This is too bad. This has been an interesting couple of weeks with the stock market continuing to, trend down as it has since Trump has announced these tariffs and everything. And the arguments from the right have become increasingly absurd to the point where it's unrecognizable from anything they would have said last year or any other time, honestly, where the stock market's telling me, but they can't say that Trump is doing anything wrong. That's absolutely anathema. However, it's the religious, the white conservative evangelicals have always been Trump's core support. They they love who Donald Trump is because Donald Trump is who they are. They love it. He is a racist bully that that displays all of the excesses and greed and character flaws of the United States of America. And I'm not a Christian. I was part of the evangelical crowd many, many years ago. But from experience, I can say that it hardly resembles a religion anymore, or a Christianity anymore. That what conservative white evangelicalism is a civic religion that worships conservative Christian America and capitalism. And as long as Trump is their avatar, they will defend it no matter what. I also find it interesting that he says, hey, your 401k is tanking, don't worry about it. Because isn't that Republicans' number one thing they go to, saying, well, we don't need Social Security because you have your 401ks. It sucks for you if you retire when the stock market crashes, but hey, I got to roll the dice. What are you going to do? And to the second clip, when he was talking to the young lady, I wrote down the conservative values and beliefs and religion. That was the reason that she said that she voted for Trump. Honestly, that answer she gave, surprisingly honest. I got to say, it really is. Because if you ask people why they vote for Trump, usually they will point to nonsense. They will say, I like his plan for the economy. No, you don't. You don't know what it is. You can't explain it. Right. I really like, what he stands for. Or they'll say something about how they want to keep borders safe without going into detail about immigrants and all. But she was saying that this is a religious thing. And if she grew up in the religious cult that a lot of Americans do, you are taught from birth, Democrats bad. If that's all you need to know, you vote for the Republican no matter what. I was, however, surprised that she didn't say the rape adjudication was fake news. That kind of surprised me, that she seemed to be collected enough in reality to say, well, okay, well, yeah, that happened, but I'm going to look past it. Because that's not what most conservatives would do. They say, oh, well, there was a liberal judge and she had out to get him and those convictions were nonsense. So refreshing honesty. I don't know if she's going to, become a rational person after that, but she was honest about her thoughts. She didn't bother trying to defend it with any esoteric strategy.
Oh Lord, I'll tackle Dora the Explorer first. It bothers me when it bothers me, anyone does it, but someone who's a marginalized group.
Yeah.
That all they know to do is say what they think the party stands for and not watch what the party is doing. And this girl, in the same breath, says she's about religion, but you voted for a man who is a convicted rapist. If I was the guy interviewing her, I would say to her, ma'am, if someone raped your mother, would you vote for them the president, whether they stand for religion or not? What do you think she would have said, TJ?
She would probably say no. And it goes in line with all the Trump supporters. Like you've noticed, like these last couple of weeks when people say, my job was cut at the Department of Education or Defense, and I voted for Trump. I knew he was going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, but I never thought he'd come after me. I thought he'd go after trans people and immigrants. I didn't know he would be coming after government workers. But this is why I hold no sympathy, or as little sympathy as I can possibly muster for these folks. I've heard a lot of people say we need to bring these people back with open arms because we need their support. We need every vote we can get. True, we do, and I would rather, but that's not going to happen because they didn't change their mind because they reversed their paradigm of logic or morality or anything like that. They only changed their mind because something bad happened to them. Like their idea of morality doesn't extend past them, maybe their family, but that's it. So that person is not an ally. That person is just someone who the enemy of our enemy is not necessarily our friend.
Right. That person is a convenient hypocrite.
Yes.
And yes. So often we always talk about Republicans don't change stripes until something affects their Republican politicians. Don't change stripes until something affects their friends and their families. And I just wonder how long this will last with Trump breaking the back of these people that thought that he wouldn't come for them. How long will this last? I've seen a lot who said that they would turn ship, but I've also seen a lot who have Stockholm syndrome, TJ, and they're going to stick right there and keep getting beat down. And I've even heard one Republican say this, and they said they don't give a damn. They said, as long as those immigrants, those black folks, and those gays are suffering.
Yeah.
I don't care what Trump does.
Yeah.
Think about that. Think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. It's spite-based politics. I tried saying this all last year, actually, honestly, 4 years. I've been ramping up to this and everything, that if you go, well, you can't go anymore, but if you went to a Trump rally and you saw what he said and what the people said, very little of it was projecting a vision for the future that, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. It's going to lead to this. That made any sense. What you did hear a lot of was F your feelings, cry more.
Right.
Yeah, still your president. The entire thing was based on hurting other people, and which is cathartic for a lot of folks. It's like, well,
Right.
It's essentially political nihilism. I think a lot of these folks have given up on the idea that politics can possibly lead to anything good for them. And they will tell you that. They like saying, well, all politicians are bad, but they love voting for Republicans. I think in a sense, they kind of do believe that. They think that all politicians may not have their best interest in heart. However, this one particular group of politicians will make life worse for people I hold in ill regard. And those folks are going to keep voting Republican or not vote at all. I don't see any scenario in which a sizable percentage of these folks say, oh, actually, I want universal health care now. I think this is great. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to the pastor, and then I'll get us to one of the subjects you might have brought to us. The only thing I can say about the pastor and most churches and religions in his ilk, all of them are fucking con men, ladies and gentlemen. All of them. And who's the ultimate con? The Don, Trump. And they know it. And they love it. One thing that I watch a lot of on TV is American Greed. And it's all about white collar crime. And these con guys have the same modus operandi. They want to basically use affinity. A church is a form of affinity, or country club, a form of affinity, and get you to invest in something that they know is a damn Ponzi scheme. And now I'm not saying all religions and all churches are doing this, but the most of them in this guy's church flying around in jets and driving 6 different Mercedes when you don't want to feed the poor of your church, that is not what Jesus would have had done, period.
Oh, yeah, that's so Lamont and I are not religious. We're not. So I know a lot of folks probably are and everything. And I try to, show as much, ironically, grace as I possibly can, because I understand that people grew up religious. Our society, the Republicans aren't wrong when they say we have a basically Christian culture. That's true. It is. It's like we have religious holidays on our calendar. Easter's coming up or tomorrow. Most people, whether they go to church or not, are going to be dyeing eggs and everything. Half the people have names that come right out of the Bible: Peter, Andrew, James, John, Thomas, Mary, Elizabeth, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel. And we are saturated with religious context and culture and everything. So I don't fault folks for growing up in this culture and being Christian. However, if you're going to give money to like massive mega churches, especially those, I don't understand. Even as a Christian, that wouldn't have made sense to me. Seeing, I think it was Ted Haggard. I think he got on TV. Oh, Creflo Dollar. It was Creflo Dollar, and Creflo Dollar. Do you remember years ago when he said that he needed to raise money to buy a private jet? I don't know how that works on anyone. I really don't. Like, even as a Christian, I said, that's insane. Why would a pastor need a private jet? Or why would God need one? That's who the money's supposed to be going to, right? So if you want to believe that, Jesus is part of a triune deity who spoke reality into existence, fine, whatever. But don't waste your money like that. It does much better feeding your family than it does going to some flashy preacher.
And ladies and gentlemen, the biggest thing I want you to take away from religion and politics, you need to separate them. TJ made a point. I try to game it like this. We're supposed to be free to practice whatever religion we want, as long as it doesn't harm your neighbor. And the issue with that is the home team religion is Christianity. So if this was a basketball game, you got 2 teams coming together under one roof, you have a home team. The home team is Christianity. even though the Constitution says you're free to practice whatever you want. It just happens the home team religion is Christianity. And if you're going to practice it, fine. But don't let the seduction of that religion trickle down into other people and try to govern their lives based on how you practice your religion. That's when you're getting into problems.
Yeah, and it's especially dangerous because, and so there's a lot of reverence toward the founding fathers that's unearned, and people get this incorrect. We have this unfortunate habit. I think this isn't, limited to the United States, but I think it's just how people are, that we like to slot human beings into good person, bad person boxes. That's a good person. That's a bad person. And it's really tricky when you're evaluating history because you pull out someone who's labeled good person. So say Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln's labeled good person, honest Abe, won the Civil War, Emancipation Proclamation, good guy all around. And then when you mention, hey, Abraham Lincoln, he also executed dozens of Native Americans, like the largest mass murder of Native Americans in American history. That's a fact. It happened. People get upset when you bring it up because, hey, Abe Lincoln's a good person. You can't do that. Say, no, that's not how you look at history. There are no good or bad people. There are just people. They have actions that are good and actions that are bad, and we learn from them. That's what we have to do. And with the founders, people put them in the good person category. So whenever you criticize them or say they did something good, like say the separation of church and state, obviously, that's one of the best things the founders did. It was the first constitution in the world that actually had separation of church and state in there. And the reason that's so important, because people ask, why does that even matter? Is
Really, people.
Well,
are you serious?
No, they do because
have they not watched Game of Thrones?
Well, I know, right? Yeah. So what they'll say is, okay, you have your set of beliefs, right? And you're going to argue to get those passed into law. I have my set of beliefs. They happen to be religious, and I'm trying to get those passed into law. Why does it matter if it's religious or not? And the answer is that, let's say Lamont and I have some sort of moral, philosophical, or legal disagreement or whatever. And Lamont comes up and he says, hey, I think this should be a law because I've evaluated this data. Here's the evidence. This is the goal we're trying to get to. I think this is going to work. And I say, I disagree. God told me this is a good idea. Now, all of a sudden, my idea has a lot more weight now, doesn't it? Because if it's just two human beings arguing, then we can talk about data. Then we can talk about, a discourse between ourselves. But once we bring a third party in who is a supernatural, all-powerful being, there's nothing he can say that will change my mind. Nothing at all. What is he going to say that's going to match what God says? Nothing. There's nowhere to go. So it stalls and it halts any sort of progress or solving any problems because people come in with, extra dimensional preconceived notions from a superior being. That's why it's important. We have to solve things on a secular level. Otherwise we get nowhere.
Right. And I could go on with this with you all day.
That's great.
I'll say it like this. You don't even have to go as far as saying, my God. I always tell people the one thing people to bring up in an argument that you're not supposed to argue against, and when I do argue against it, I'm deemed bad, is religion, period. When I'm whipping somebody in a debate, they'll all of a sudden will say, well, my faith tells me this. And I'll look at them like, I don't give a damn what your faith says.
Don't care. Irrelevant.
Your faith does not rule my house. Okay, and then I give them this. This is the greatest example I give them. Do you know that we had two large buildings in New York into which some people's faith said, drive two big ass airplanes into those buildings? What you got to say about that? How do you feel about your faith now?
Well, it's easy, Lamont. That was the wrong faith. That was the problem. It was the wrong. That's the answer they give. That's literally the answer they give. Yeah.
Sure, it was the wrong faith for you.
Exactly.
But it was not the wrong faith for them.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when we need to come to an agreement, should you ride an airplane into a building or not, we have to come to an agreement. And you do that secularly by putting something on document and saying law.
Yes, yeah. There is no mechanism anywhere to determine which religious faith is correct. It doesn't exist. It doesn't happen at all. So don't even try.
All right. So what you got, TJ? I see you got some things to put on the wall real quick.
Yeah. So the first one I wanted to bring up was this chart, this poll I found at the Data for Progress, and it's asking. So it says a majority of voters think the government should have to provide evidence in a hearing before deporting immigrants. And they asked, which of the following comes closer to your view, even if neither is exactly right? And the statements are the federal government should only be allowed to deport undocumented immigrants if it has provided evidence in a hearing. And the other is the federal government should be allowed to deport undocumented immigrants without providing an evidence or hearing. Of most likely voters, 57% said, obviously, yes, the government needs to, actually go through due process and make sure that the people that they're deporting actually fit the criteria for someone who should be deported. 65% of Republicans said no. 65% said, actually, no, I don't think the government has to do that at all. And that's what I want to bring up there, because that is staggering. That is so depressing. I guess it's not super surprising based on what we've seen, but the fact that they're just open about it and don't care is part of that political nihilism that I've been seeing lately. Have you seen anything like that?
Yes. I mean, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the clips I have deals with this whole issue of immigration actually coming and snatching people that are citizens. Yeah. Which is my point, that other Americans need to be aware that they will come and snatch you if you're not white male Christian. And I'm glad that the Republicans are honest, but it's also, just because you're honest doesn't mean it's right. Absolutely. It doesn't mean it's right. Fill in the gaps, TJ. Then I'll jump to the clip I've got about this whole thing with Garcia. We had a lawyer that was abducted, held against his will, coming back from Canada. It's just a mess.
Yeah, it's no problem. So this thing going on. It's like, what's sad about this? I was thinking about Kilmar and Garcia and all that. It is unfortunate that it's actually hard to keep track of these people's names because there's so many of them. Every time you turn on TV, there's somebody else who was deported with no due process. There was someone who's being held, American citizens being held, and then they find out, oh, okay, we got, your birth certificate here. You can go after spending the night in jail or something like that. And what Lamont was saying is, listen, it's really frustrating that the Republicans are just mask off with this, saying we're perfectly fine with this happening. And the arguments you bring forth is, well, listen, you say you're fine with undocumented immigrants being shipped away. All right, if that's your position, but how would you know they're undocumented immigrants in the first place if you just round people up and ship them? They don't care. They don't. And it's exactly because of what Lamont said, is like white, Christians low on the list. Like, they're not going to get to them. But you know what, folks? They will. Okay. This is the problem with fascism. There's I think it's a rather famous poem. Like, first they came for the socialists during World War II.
Martin Luther King.
And so they talk about that. Oh, that's fine because the others are going to be punished for this. And the problem with fascism is that it relies on an ever receding group that's an in group. It gets smaller and smaller. If they got rid of all the undocumented immigrants, they would find somebody else. And if they got rid of all the gay people, they would find someone else. And you can see this because fascism arose in Europe. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you guys have been to Europe or anything. The minority population in most of Europe, certainly Europe 80, 90 years ago, barely exists. Like, hardly any people from different continents at all. And you can kind of see this if you watch an old movie. If you watch a movie, I always got a kick out of this when I watched movies as a kid from the 50s or 60s. You'd see a lot of conversations that went a little like this. Well, I'm German and she's Italian. And, my mom, she won't let me date an Italian. She won't let me date a Polish guy. White people are racist against other white people. And this is the foundation. You will go to a foreign, like a European country, and they'll say, oh, I hate that group of people over there. And they look exactly the same. So yeah, it comes to you too. Eventually they will find a way to shrink this group small enough where it'll exclude you. But as long as it's not bothering them right now, they don't seem to care.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because when I was in school, they glossed over the history of Hitler. Mm-hmm. And if you do a dissertation on Hitler, you're seeing what's going on in this country. One of my businesses had me working with a lot of elderly people during Trump's first term. So many of them that was in this elderly home was telling me that they lived through the Holocaust. They seen it. There was people there who lived through the Holocaust and had the brands on their arms, was telling me these stories of how it started out. We've got to get these people by religion. Then it started out if your eyes aren't a certain color.
Yep.
Then it started out if your hair wasn't a certain color. They was going after people. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what is happening right here. TJ, let's take a look at this clip so we can kind of let the people see what was happening this week in terms of what was going on with just taking regular Americans, the issues with Garcia and the place he's being held at, how trashy it is, how there is a financial incentive for people to be sent there and stay there. Take a look at this.
So the Trump administration is adamant that he's a member of MS-13.
Yes.
And Attorney General Pam Bondi in the Oval Office yesterday said that 2 immigration judges, 2 courts had agreed with them. Is that true? And then true or not, well, if it is true, does that mean that the legal protections that he would have aren't there? Is that how the system works?
Great questions, both of them. So we know that an immigration judge back in 2019 did deny him bond from immigration custody, partially because of information that ICE submitted in that case that indicated that he could potentially have links to a gang based on information provided by an informant that the government deemed to be credible. That part is true. Still, the government had to reopen his immigration case and ask a judge to terminate that legal protection he had from deportation before moving to deport him, because, again, he was legally protected from being deported to El Salvador. Specifically, the administration did not follow that process when it deported him, hence why it has admitted multiple times in federal court that it made a mistake, and why the Supreme Court has said this deportation was...
My car to Canada for the weekend. And on the way back, I was treated like a criminal.
An unwelcome return home for Bashir Atala and his wife Jessica on Sunday when they say Customs and Border Patrol officers stopped them at the border between Vermont and Canada.
He asked me, exit the vehicle right now, and he reached for his gun. I said, okay, I'm exiting the vehicle. Keep your gun at your waist.
Just hours before, Atala celebrated Palm Sunday with his family. Now he was being arrested.
They handcuffed me. They twisted my arm.
It was like a shock for me.
A real estate attorney, Atala says he's been an American citizen for over 10 years. He immediately started questioning why he was being detained.
Even if he asks questions, they say we don't know, it's the government.
Atala says CBP agents requested to look into his email on his phone, which he denied them access to because of attorney-client privilege.
So I had to, under duress, give him permission to look through my email, through my privileged information, and he made me write a statement signed by me saying that I gave him permission to look through the email.
After several requests, Atala says CBP agents called his sister Celine Atala, who is an immigration attorney.
It started with the immigrants. It's coming to us Americans, and it's gonna go after all of us.
After nearly 5 hours, Atala says he and his wife were released. They are now pursuing legal action.
I really thought things would change after this administration, when we had Mr. Trump in office. Things would change to the better. Things actually changed to the worse.
I think making it a race thing is actually, that's not a fair argument, because there's a lot of people who come from Africa who do it the legal way. A ton of people who come from Asia who do it the legal way.
Yeah,
like
because they have wealth.
But yeah, a lot of the white people who came like in the 20s and 30s, that was a legal way. Like Ellis Island was a legal port of entry. You know, they sought asylum.
You see my problem though? Why was the legal way then so easy, but now it's so difficult? Is that not hypocritical to enforce a much more difficult way on people now than we did then? Because the only immigrants that could do that then were white.
Well, it wasn't all white, but the problem is now we have so many more. There's such a mass migration, and to me, the people back then were willing to assimilate, which if you're wanting to come to America, that's awesome. Like, I appreciate people wanting to come to America and seek a better life, but then you also have to be willing to follow our laws, our customs, our culture.
I'm gonna give it to you, but I just want to say something about Texas A&M mascot boy right there. I just got one thing that rubs a lot of us the wrong way is when people come here and they assimilate without understanding the history of how we got to where we're at. Because when people come here and assimilate, they think that they're supposed to assimilate to white people because they're the people in power, which I guess in most countries, when you go there, you do try to assimilate to those folks until they have to go through the process of seeing how those people typically treat them politically. And then they want to go back and start asking questions. Well, we didn't know this and we didn't know that. And I think it's just a little, what's the nicest way I can say this about that young man? He's being a hometown hero by saying people need to do that. And the laws don't need to be revisited in a way that makes it fair and equitable for today's society. The floor is yours.
Yeah, this is a refrain that you will often hear from conservatives when it comes to how people in the 1920s, 1890s, they did immigration the right way. They showed up on the boat, they stepped off Ellis Island, and they got their names written down, and then they jumped in. And they, like what that guy said, it's part of the mythos that they create. And they say, well, you understand that the European immigrants from 100 years ago, they're fine because they showed up and they followed procedure and protocol. It was legal immigration. And what's interesting about this is that they're mad at asylum seekers primarily, it seems. Like border crossing, like they're mad, but asylum seeking, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about here, if I lived in a foreign country and I was, in fear for my life because of war, because of gang activity, criminal stuff, whatever reason, it was no longer safe for me to stay in my country. I can go literally like almost anywhere, like any country has this, and you can cross the where you say, hey, I'm seeking asylum. And the federal government will list you. That is legal. There is nothing illegal about seeking asylum. Nothing at all. It is in accordance with United States law as well as international law. Now, conservatives have a problem with that. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Can I swear? Sorry.
Yeah. No apologies here, brother. You got it. And I was going to say, we're getting to a point where people might be seeking asylum from this country because of the fascists. But go ahead, brother. You can use profanity. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, like, seeking asylum is legal immigration. You may not like it. I got it. I understand. Once again, don't care. They are following the rules. So, if your whole complaint is they need to follow the rules, they actually are. And the first video, I think, where the guy was detained at the border and everything. Yes. It reminded me of this video I saw a long time. I feel it was 10 years ago. And I saw this video of this lady who was in Texas. And if you've ever been to Texas, you've seen these. They are these random checkpoints where you stop your vehicle and there will be Border Patrol there. And they say, hey, I want to see your proof. Show me your papers. Show me you're a U.S. citizen. Now, I've never been through one, but I have seen them because I was in Houston once and I asked someone, what's that over there by the interstate? They said, oh, that's an immigration checkpoint. And the video involved was about this lady who went through the checkpoint, and this how you stop. And then ICE comes up there. It was Customs and Border Patrol at that point, I think. And they said, okay, are you a U.S. citizen? And if you are, show me some documentation proving you're a U.S. citizen. And she was recording it. And she said, I don't have to do that. He says, yes, you do. You actually do. You have to show me that you're a citizen. She's like, well, what's the probable cause? Well, we don't have one. This is just a checkpoint. You pass through. You need to demonstrate the validity of your U.S. citizenship. She told him to go to hell. She wasn't doing anything. She wanted to see the supervisor. She recorded the whole thing. And I'm watching this like, what is wrong with this guy? And then his supervisor showed up, said the same thing. Yes, this is legal. You can't do it. I had the same face, man. I had the exact same face. I said, there's no fucking way. I looked it up. It is. It is. There is a Supreme Court case. I think it's from 1976 or 1978. This is fact. I'm positive about this. The Supreme Court case stated that within the borders of the United States, up to 100 miles, they can stop you and ask for proof of your citizenship at any time for any reason they want. And you might hear 100 miles and not think that's that big of a deal. But as it turns out, it's something like 60% of Americans live within the distance of 100 miles of either the north, south, east, or west border, or, like Hawaii or Alaska, whatever. It covers about over 60% of Americans. So the United States government can do this. And they've had this, which is wild to me, that they've had the authority to do this for 50 years now. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of dark because Donald Trump now has this ability. It's kind of crazy. Oh, someone in there said, I went through a Texas checkpoint back in 2009. There were dogs and everything. Yeah. If you've been to Texas, it's...
Oh, Khadijah, she stays in Houston. And TJ, I got the Supreme Court case for you.
Okay, what is it?
The Supreme Court case you're referring to is United States versus Martinez Federer, 428 U.S. 543, 1976.
76, yeah. So it actually is legal. It should not be. It is ridiculous. It is absurd that the United States government can stop you at any time if you're within 100 miles of a border. That's not just the southern border, northern border, each ocean, and say, it's not just the southern border. It is all four. And and so that's why I say, like, it covers, I don't know if it says in what you looked up at how many Americans live within that range. It is much higher than you would expect. It is most Americans because, nobody lives in like the central or central time, not central, but mountain time zone area. Nobody lives there. But the eastern United States is packed with people. And what I write here, asylum is legal. Africa and wealth, yes. So this is another thing. Back in the 80s, Ronald Reagan pushed forth this model minority thing where he says, well, we have people saying that United States is racist and we treat people poorly and that immigrants can't succeed and black people are struggling. But look at this. Look at these South Korean immigrants, or look at these Japanese immigrants and how wealthy and how well they're doing. And the interviewer he nailed it. He says, because the other guy mentioned Africa too, like Nigerian immigrants would be immigrants who do very well when they show up. The further away you are from the United States when you immigrate, the better off you're going to be when you get here because it took money to arrive. If you showed up crossing a border with no shoes on, you showed up in chains or whatever, you're not going to do very well. Okay, like that's just not how it's set up. But if you have the wealth and you get here, it's going to tilt it obviously in the favor of that way. And I wrote down the mass migration thing too. Oh, actually, if you wouldn't mind sharing the poll I have down there, Lamont.
Oh, sure, of course. Here we go, ladies. We cite our sources. We show the proof, ladies and gentlemen.
So this is another thing that's kind of related to what we talked about before. And Trump is defying the Supreme Court with these decisions and everything. The Supreme Court voted 9-0 that they were wrong in deporting Garcia, right? And to El Salvador. And said, no, this isn't right. You got to do it. Clarence Thomas,
nuts.
Insane.
Nuts.
I shocked. I was shocked to see that. I don't think I've ever seen like a controversial case like that go 9-0 in my life. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Me neither.
And 9-0 in the right direction, I have to say. And so,
right.
You got Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas saying, wow, Donnie, you're going a little far. But guess what? Donald Trump cares? Not at all. Not one bit. His defense is, well, he's in El Salvador and I can't get him. And the El Salvadorian president he's been working with said, well, I can't get him either. Obvious, clown show. But what was interesting, this is a poll from Strength United, I think it was. The vast majority of Americans, 82%, believe Trump should obey court orders, even if he disagrees with them. And 56% thinks he should stop deporting people. And the question here, this is interesting. They asked, the president should obey federal court rulings, even if he disagrees with them. Now, when you just ask straight up like that, 82% of Americans say, yes, the president should obey court orders. Weird that 14% say no. Who are those folks? I don't know. And Republicans say 68% say, of course, if the court rules, the president should follow their decision. And then when they made the question about Trump should keep deporting people despite the court order to stop, 76% of Republicans said yes. That, like, you ask them in a vacuum, should the president obey the court order? They say yes. But when you ask them in specific, should Trump defy the court order? They also say yes. It is a cult of personality around this guy who can do no wrong. And it reminded me, I don't have the poll in front of me, but I was first worried. I first became really worried about the 2024 election around September or October. And I saw this, I think it was at the Republican National Convention or maybe some other event the Republicans had. And it was this big crowd of people and they had a bunch of signs. They always do at every convention. And every other sign said mass deportation now. I don't know if you saw that, but they had hats and signs. I said, wow, that's actually no. When I first saw that, I thought the Republicans are cooked. They're done. It's over. Nobody can possibly get behind this group saying mass deportation now. But the next day I saw a poll and it said 54% of Americans favor mass deportation. 54% said, whoa, that's not good. That's not just Republicans. That is the nation as a whole. And it's a dark hole we've dug ourselves into. And I think it's possible to get out of it, but the soul of the nation is very sick. You know what? Sorry, Lauren, this is kind of off topic maybe, but I've had this conversation with lots of people. To me, things seem actually worse than they were 10 years ago. Which is kind of odd. Like I have a hard time imagining that you could be as openly and brazenly misogynistic and racist, like on national television. I couldn't imagine that happening 10, 15 years ago. It was always subtle. It was always like lines you could cross. But now the fact that we have, Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes, like people just saying, Candace Owens or Kanye West. I mean, the stuff that people say that is just blatantly racist and misogynistic, you could not have gotten away with until very recently. I never thought that would actually happen, where we all assume things just keep getting better and better every year. And clocks started turning back real quick. Have you had that feeling?
Have I? 100%.
Okay.
But what's worse is certain people are allowed to get away with it. Because when we first met, I gave you the comparison in the conversation I had with a Republican. Trump is a convicted rapist who actively cusses in front of cameras. He actively talks about beating the living hell out of people. He actively mocks people with special needs. And you voted for him. But you wouldn't vote for P. Diddy, who hasn't been convicted of none of the shit. He probably did it, but he hasn't been convicted of it yet. So why would you not vote for P. Diddy, who is honestly a better businessman than Trump, but you would vote for Trump? Mm-hmm. And Diddy's not convicted of nothing other than his skin color. Yeah. I mean, just be honest about this thing. And it frustrates me that me and you can't say something as incendiary as Charlie Kirk can say because he's a white male. Yeah. And when you have the leader setting the precedents, you get these little twerps who are freshmen in college and high school doing this stuff, knowing that because maybe they have blonde hair, blue eyes, and a rich daddy, they're going to be able to get away with spitting in somebody's face who's a minority. Or if they live in the right county that's red, they can do even more heinous things and get away with it openly. Yeah. That's what it is. It's more open now. Yes. And it bothers me. I don't like this precedent.
Yeah, it's a lot more open. And I should have seen it coming. I should have. I'm sad that I actually didn't notice it because it started a very long time ago. And
you didn't. Let me say this. You didn't notice this sea change when the Tea Party came out as a response to Barack Obama. That's when I noticed it.
Well, I mean, I noticed it, but I thought it would lose. I'm surprised it won. I'm surprised it actually won and gained prominence. I would have bet anything Trump would have lost in 2016. I did not expect Trump to win at all. I didn't back then. And so I was taken off guard by that. But the trajectory, it's easy to track. And it starts, I mean, you can say it started in the 60s with like William F. Buckley or something, but I lay it at the feet of Rush Limbaugh. And that Rush Limbaugh essentially made conservative talk radio, like acerbic talk radio, a thing of like national importance, that people would listen to him every day to and from work or during work or whatever. And Rush Limbaugh figured out early on the same formula that conservatives always use, that you need to do your best to say something as offensive that you possibly can without actually getting into trouble. Get in enough trouble that you won't get fired, but make people talk about it, be as crass and as rude and as just terrible as you possibly can be. And that's good. There's a financial incentive for you. And so then Fox News came along and they followed the same pattern.
I was going to say, you can't say Rush without marrying him to Rupert Murdoch and Fox News, because he amplified them.
Yes.
And then Rush amplified all these Rush wannabes, from Neil Bortz to Cavuto to all
John
these
Hannity.
MFers. Yes, to all these guys that amplify stuff that they know is wrong, that some of them don't even believe in, but because it feeds their ego, because these people love them, they say it. And there's a fight, like you say, there's a financial benefit to it.
Huge. There is a massive financial incentive for, especially back then, because if you wanted to go like watch TV and hear someone talk to an African American and say, "Hey, take the bone out of your nose before you talk to me," you couldn't find that. Like, there was nobody saying that on national television. But you go to Rush Limbaugh and you can hear him say that and get off on it, and it kept amplifying, like you said, with Fox News, with the Hannitys and the O'Reillys and everything. But as time has gone on, people get used to it, and you need to say something worse. You need to keep going farther and farther. Right. And I like that you brought up Charlie Kirk, because he's a great case study in this. I'll have to find the clips next time. If you look at the old videos of Charlie Kirk from like 8 or 10 years ago, he's different. He's not the same as he is now. There's a video I saw with Charlie Kirk talking about, he was saying that, hey, Martin Luther King is an important figure in U.S. history, and it's important that we respect and honor the work that he did. And he was booed. The crowd booed him, saying, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you talking about here?" And Nick Fuentes would make fun of Charlie Kirk for, being like a softer version of him. I saw Charlie Kirk on stage with a rather annoying black gay conservative. I can't remember his name, but he's obnoxious. And the crowd was yelling at Charlie Kirk, telling him, "Hey, I don't want," it's like, what does gay sex do to advance the conservative agenda? Like, why are you having these queers up here talking to us? And Charlie Kirk was fighting for his life. And Charlie Kirk realized, oh, actually, I got to become more and more like a Nazi. And then his profile started growing more and more. And it's going to keep getting worse. Like, I would have thought that wouldn't have worked. I would have thought that the reaction would have been a lot more negative, but there's a sizable market for it, and they're not getting, now they can get it a lot more places, which has just made it worse.
Yeah, and the Democrats are having a hard time being holistic in how they fight this. Republicans have been they've been fighting generations, putting sneaky things in place from. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to understand how dark money works, and TJ, if you haven't watched it, I beg you to watch it. There's a new series on HBO called Dark Money Game. And it breaks down how these crooked ass Republicans have been pouring all this money into Christian national bullshit, into crooked politics. And they talk about how the Citizens United case really opened up the door to get these agendas going. And there are more rich people paying money to Republicans than there are enough rich people for Democrats. And then what they started doing was they noticed that at the federal level, we just had too many people who were kind of moderate to the left. So what they started doing to fix that, they started pouring dark money into individual states, helping individual state candidates win so that they could gerrymander the fuck out of the voting districts. And then you can start having messed up voting districts. Then you can get your senators. Then you can get your governors. And then you can start enhancing the power you have via this dark money. And they finally caught one of these guys and a politician. But ladies and gentlemen, that's a sidebar. I just want you to take a look at that, because that all adds to what TJ is saying. And Democrats need to take a more holistic stance on educating people as early as you can in elementary school, so that we're not so susceptible to this stuff. Because you let these kids go not understanding the history. They get to college and you got to deal with peer pressure, hormones. Should I have sex? Should I have sex? Drugs. It's easy for them to become these right-wing fuckers who don't have sex, who ain't cool. It's easy for them to turn into that. So you've got to start Democrats being holistic. And before I forget, TJ, let me give you this, because you talked about how Trump is defying the Supreme Court. If you ever want to know what can be done, now it's tough to do it to him because they basically gave his ass immunity when he was the president. But here are some things of what can be done. So Congress could act, they could cut funding hold hearings, file articles of impeachment. Well, we know that's not going anywhere.
No.
Because we don't have enough Democrats in the House nor the Senate. And it's saying the public could do protests and demand accountability. That's not going anywhere because Republicans love y'all being in the streets when they know that they have rigged the game. And this game right now is rigged. The other thing that you can have is just oversight and funding power to stop some of the functions that the president can do. But in order for that to happen, you guys are going to have to flip the House at midterms to do some of this. There's nothing in this data that says you can send somebody up there to arrest Trump. Now, I did read somewhere where governors, if Trump does something in an individual governor's state, for example, Pennsylvania, if they really wanted to, they could send their state guard to either the White House or down to El Salvador to pick up Garcia. Now, I don't know why they haven't started trying to do that, other than they don't want to start a war. But at the end of the day, TJ, I would say Trump has already done that because the checks and balances have told him, you got to bring this man home, and y'all up here lollygagging over word salad on how you can't do it.
Oh, yeah. I'd have a hard time seeing the National Guard.
State Guard.
Well, yeah. So yeah, the National Guard. Yeah, it's like for the individual state, and
right.
Yeah, because like when you join the Guard, you swear, like when you join the active duty military or the reserve, you swear an oath to the President of the United States, and in the state, you swear an oath to the governor and the president. So like you.
By the way, TJ is a veteran, ladies and gentlemen. So for all y'all that love to do the bull job of thank you for your service, I would say if you really want to thank this man for his service, send his ass something to his Instagram or go subscribe to his channel. Do more than just thank him.
Yeah, I appreciate that one. Yeah. So yeah, it would be like legally tricky as far as the military would go. I can see it falling apart real quick, especially because like a state acting against a sovereign nation by itself is weird. Well, you know what? I don't know. It's not gonna, like you said, it's not going to happen. But TJ,
how is that any weirder than American citizens storming the Capitol?
Oh yeah, you're right. That's January 6th is so crazy. That is wild. That it happened. And if you want to see something really funny, folks, go back and watch every politician, Republican and Democrat, on January 7th. They were terrified. They said, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I know you guys are upset about Trump. So am I. But we got to stop this. They were talking about him. They did impeach Trump again after that. But when the dust settled, they realized, oh, the constituents loved it. And then all the Republicans changed their tune and said, actually, they were just peaceful people walking around, just being let into the Capitol. Like, once again, you expect that from politicians, but it's funny that you see how stark and obvious it was on January 7th and how they changed their mind. And I'm so glad you said this, man, because I say both of these things you said. First, impeachment is useless. I don't want to hear
waste of time.
Goddamn word about Trump being impeached. It is Al Green, who I actually love now. Al Green is the congressman who stood up during the State of the Union address. I love that. Yeah. But like a couple of weeks earlier, he had filed articles of impeachment. I just rolled my eyes. What are we doing? This is a waste of time here. Yeah, what is this gonna? Yeah, Trump has been impeached twice. It didn't matter then. It's not going to matter now. We've impeached 3 presidents in history. We impeached Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. None of them were removed from office. Andrew Johnson, if you guys like, I'm not going to the history of it, but Andrew Johnson was Lincoln's vice president and the president after the Civil War. For my money, easily the worst president in American history. Easily. Like the number 2 is a distant second. Andrew Johnson was awful. He was impeached, still wasn't convicted. 1 vote short. And if we couldn't convict Andrew Johnson, we're not convicting anybody. Waste of time. And I've said this about...
He was a starch racist, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Well, having said that, it ain't like Honest Abe loved us either, but Johnson really hated blacks and was as corrupt. I ain't going to say he was more corrupt than Donald Trump, but his ass was horrible. One of those Woodrows was bad too. I got to go.
Woodrow Wilson, he was pretty racist. He had Birth of a Nation.
Yeah. But Johnson was horrible. He was horrible.
Johnson actually was so bad. it actually tarnishes Lincoln's record a bit. Like Johnson was it really does. It really does Lincoln picked Johnson, for those you don't know, because Johnson was a Southern Democrat from Tennessee. He was one of the few Southern Democrat senators who didn't secede with the South. And Lincoln thought it was a good olive branch to say, oh, I'm going to pick a Southern white racist Democrat to be my running mate.
Because Lincoln was a Republican, y'all. So he thought that he was showing some form of unity with the nation.
Yes.
So he went with these Southern Dixiecrats to try to show some unity. We got a Republican and we got a Democrat. And the dude showed his true colors once he got the office. And there's conspiracies all over the world. I don't know if there's any truth to them that Johnson possibly was, I don't want to say he had something, but he was happy when Abe was assassinated.
I hadn't heard that that he was partially, because when the guy who shot Lincoln, John Wilkes Booth, everyone knows, but the guy who shot Lincoln, he was part of a broader conspiracy to assassinate everyone down the line. They were going to assassinate the president, vice president, speaker of the House. Mm-hmm. They had like 5 or 6 people lined up to kill the entire chain of succession to throw the country into chaos. And only Booth made it. And I always think back, like, listen, we don't know how Abe Lincoln would have handled Reconstruction. But it's hard to imagine anyone doing a worse job than Johnson. Like, I would pick a random person off the street would do a better job than Johnson. And it's like, man, if only the Johnson guy would have been successful, not Lincoln's guy. Like, why did it have to be Lincoln's guy, not the Johnson guy? Like, why did that happen? If one of them had to go, it was Lincoln of all people. John, read up. We're going to talk about read up on it and everything. And also, you said something that I don't say it a lot because I don't want to be a downer or whatever. I have been questioning the utility of protest for a while now. I have been questioning. It's like,
TJ, I told you, I'm different. I told you,
I'm so glad to hear that.
I've been in politics. I've been in business. I know these things. So no holds bars here, my brother. No holds bars.
Yeah, I have been questioning how effective this is. And listen, you could make an argument for intangible so people know they're not alone. Oh, this movement is actually big. It's part of them. I understand that. But the protest comes and it goes. It's done. And the Republicans keep on doing the awful stuff. So, okay. And now if you're going to use the protest to do something to keep tabs with people, to further engagement, political action, because the best thing I think in the entire show is what Lamont said about how Republicans have been at this for a long time. And not just with the funding, but with actually, like, listen, say what you want about how awful the right wing of the United States of America is. They have been putting in the fucking work. They have. Ever since the civil rights movement and the women's rights movement for 60 fucking years, they have done everything they can to run
that shit around.
They have. They run for school boards. They run for aldermen. They run for every minor office you've never heard of.
At the very bottom. They do. Become the president of the Homeowners Association to help niggas out. I'm telling y'all. I done had to fight some, y'all. I'm telling you.
They do. And they've been at it for longer than we've been alive. And it is paying off huge right now. And that's what you have to be patient. Like, it's not going to flip. It's not going to turn tomorrow, which is what we all want. But they also have an advantage. And you mentioned, I was looking for the chart. I can't find it, but it's right. You have to trust me on this one, folks. You can check me out later. But the Republicans. The Republicans have a major advantage when you with church. And you mentioned how they've wed Christian nationalism. Well, I mean, white conservative evangelical Christianity is essentially a cult of American white nationalism. And they have a major advantage there where they've turned the church into a giant political arm. And also because of the demographics of the Republican Party. The Republican Party, since 1964, the Republican Party has been 90% white. And these days, it's like 81 or 84% white. And it's like, which is funny that they always say that the left is obsessed with identity politics, that the right only exists because of white identity politics. That's their entire thing right there. But if you look at the demographics of the Democratic Party, it is shockingly similar to the demographics of the United States. When I checked, I think it was last year or 2 years ago for the election, the makeup of the Democratic voting base was 59 or 60% white, and the United States is about 60% white. it had maybe 15% Latino. The United States is about 15% Latino, about 15% Black. The United States is about 12% Black. I was shocked how close it actually was to a perfect microcosm or simulacrum of the United States. And that's great. Like that's what politics should be. However, it does give the Republicans an advantage, because when you have a bunch of different groups working together, their interests do not always converge, and you end up fighting, and you end up which produces a more fair and equitable society. But when you're fighting against people who are all white, straight white Christians, they have a huge advantage that way. And when they can charge each other up once a week, every Sunday in church, saying God wants us to win these elections, it's tough. It's going to take a lot of work, but we can do it. But like you said, we have to start small, and we have to stay consistent with it.
Yep. Take a listen to this. Religious affiliation among Republicans. And I'll give you the comparisons to Democrats. Christian identification. Approximately 88% of Republicans identify as Christians.
Wow.
Protestants, 56% are Republicans. Protestants. Catholic, 25%. But every time you turn around, you hear a whole lot of stuff being talked about Jews and how rich Jews are. But let me give you the other stats. Comparison with Democrats. Christian identification. 76% of Democrats are Christians. 38% Protestants. 31% Catholic. This is the one that might stagger people. Religiously unaffiliated. 35%. That's more than a third of the Democrats.
Yeah.
So, and here is in the 119th U.S. Congress, which is 2025, Republicans, 98% identify as Christian.
Yeah.
Democrats, 70% identify as Christians. And the reason why TJ and I are mentioning this is because a lot of money comes from them. They don't pay money. They don't pay taxes on the churches and the money they collect. And they are able to put their money in these dark pools, and they don't give a damn about how crooked, how heinous the politicians are that are voting for them, as long as the politician get the agenda done. And TJ, I'll move us on, but let me give another quick history lesson to people that want to hear it.
Yeah.
There was one time these white Christians got very upset with Republicans, and that was during Ronald Reagan. I'm laughing because it's like, okay, they threw the most money behind the Reagan campaign, and they had the Congress and the Senate, and instead of pushing for abortion to get rid of it, he went after tax breaks, and that angered them. And then that was some of the things that brought about some of the stuff that happened to him closer to the end of his term. And it later filtered to Bush, who didn't do anything to help them get this agenda done, which got him up out of there after one term and brought in Clinton. So folks, that's how powerful these people are. And now they played the long game from the 60s, and they finally got Roe versus Wade overturned with a crooked ass Alito who grew up in one of these Christian nationalist households and was caught off camera. And if you go watch what I'm talking about on HBO, Dark Money Game, you will hear him on the second episode saying some stuff that would make your skin crawl.
I remember that when it was like he was talking at some party or whatever.
Yes.
And yeah, I remember that when that happened. Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, I'm not going to hold you much longer. Let me give you something that might be a little funny.
Let's go. I love it. I love it.
It might be a little funny, but I'm gonna couch it like this, ladies and gentlemen. So we've been in this back and forth tariff fight. Now you might be wondering, well, why is Trump doing this when all the history says the 2 times we've done tariff issues, it caused us a recession? Well, folks, he's trying to pass a tax bill to give the biggest tax breaks to the top wealthiest 10% in this country, and he's trying to pay for it via tariffs. And what bothers me with Trump is a lot of things that don't need to have a discussion around, because Trump says it, we start having damn discussions around it.
Yes.
And this is another one of those things. And so there's been a fight back and forth between him and China. Well, China has decided not only are they going to fight him back with how much they're going to put on tariffs, but they also want to humiliate these bunch of bullies who think they can intimidate and pick on other people without people doing it to them. China has decided to pick on J.D. Vance, and the J.D. stands for I'm just another drag queen, by making memes of him and his dark eyeliner looking like a white fucking prince. Take a look at this, and we're going to talk about it. Here we go.
土气乡巴佬风格，眼线笔，中国制造，品质可靠。Rustic, country style, eyeliner pencil, made in China, reliable quality.
This just shows. This is full smoky eye.
So do you care this? So the time that I hadn't got a key case. You better move on, baby.
That's great.
So shout out to my girls over there at iHip News and I've Had It podcast, another great progressive podcast, but I need them to stop talking about impeach Trump. That's not going to do nothing. Anyway, TJ, China ain't playing. I've never seen them meme anyone this high up in our government to this degree. And, you know, the whole thing about the Trump administration, they want people to believe that they're so super powerful, no one and no other nation is willing to stand up to them. And China knows it. And it's sick that China understands that the undertone for J.D. Vance is that he's closet drag queen and they're making fun of it. Then they have the audacity to put on every one of these memes made in China. So, ladies and gentlemen, before I give it to you, I'm going to just say this. They're trying to make China pay for tariffs because they keep trying to say that the tariffs have been unfair. And I gave you guys the stat that of the world's total population, we're only like 5-10%, 3%, but we consume 1/5 of everything made. That's big world capitalism. Second point, who shipped all the jobs and manufacturing companies overseas to China? American corporations. So you can't have it both ways, people. Having said that, I give it to you, TJ.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that. That's really funny. I wanted to, before I go to JD Vance, you mentioned the tariff thing. Yes, yeah. It is vitally important for not just Trump, but Trump in particular, but for the right wing and for the fascist movement in general. To not winning isn't enough. It's not enough because they've won. They won hard fucking core last year, and they have control of all three branches of government. They've got control of a ton of social media, and they're still miserable. They're still running scared. Because they want to be accepted by culture. They can't stand the fact that media, that pop culture, intelligentsia, and academia has rejected them and will continue to do so. So oddly enough, stuff like that, like it's weird because it doesn't comport with our thought process. Because to me, if you do memes dunking on me, making me look stupid or whatever, I was like, okay, great. But no, it's very effective to them. It actually, they don't think like we do. They don't think like we do. They're not like us. It's just, it doesn't work that way, you know? And so it is funny seeing that. And I do see why China's doing that. But with China, particularly with the tariff thing, one thing that I have yet to understand, I can't believe it's actually working. It's going to fall apart soon enough. I think I mentioned it in our call last week, is with the tariffs that you can make a layman's argument to folks that, listen, American manufacturing has disappeared for the last 40 years or so. I want to rebuild the Rust Belt. All right, okay. In fact, I said, okay, I see why you're saying that. I mean, the complexities are pretty difficult, but I like where your heart is. And then Trump says, well, I'm going to use the tariffs to try to bring manufacturing back. You could still keep people along there because, you know, tariffs, like historically, have been used to increase increase productivity or participation in buying local rather than buying overseas. But once you start,
it augments consumer spending habits
Mm-hmm.
because those tariffs get passed along, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that's the part that gets me, is that once Trump starts saying over and over and over again, tariffs are paid by foreign nations, how does this keep happening? And I've actually been kind of frustrated about this ever since Trump's first term, where Trump will say something that is categorically false. Just no question about it. And Trump will get on stage and say 2 + 2 is 94. And people say, well, mathematicians and experts say it's not. What do you have to say to them? Why are we doing this? Why are we pretending this is a discussion at all? I saw him on TV a couple of weeks ago, and someone asked him saying, listen, why do you keep saying that tariffs are paid by foreign nations? They're paid by the importers. He says, I don't think that's true. I think they're paid by foreign nations. I genuinely, usually I can make a good guess. I genuinely can't tell if Trump, for some reason, thinks that tariffs are paid by foreign nations and just doesn't believe people when they tell him that's not how it works, or if he's just bulldozing and he figures if he just says it's true, people will believe it. You know what? I think he's right. If Trump keeps saying it, they're going to believe it. And then when the costs are risen, they're not going to blame Trump. They're going to blame the businesses. How dare you defy President Trump like this when you're getting all this money from other nations? I think it's that easy to brainwash, I don't know, at least 30% of the population, maybe more.
Little more. And you know what you're talking about, you just saw this in his first presidency.
Mm-hmm.
You just saw it. Ivermectin. Hydrochloroquine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go sit your ass in the sun, tan a little bit.
Yep.
And people start making it gospel.
Yep.
Like, instead of getting smarter, one thing Trump knows, he said this in an interview, if he ran for office, he run as a Republican because those people are the stupidest. They lack the Trump has said this way back in the day. They lack the critical thinking skills to challenge and seek to understand if what I'm saying is true. He has said that himself. And the next time we do this, I'll pull the clip for you. He knows good and damn well who he comes from. A couple of failed businesses that involve importing goods for his construction businesses. And he knows good and damn well who has to incur that cost. The business incurs that cost. Then you got to push that cost onto the consumers. And then the consumers have to pay the cost. He knows good. It's just that so many people aren't smart enough. And then you got him surrounded by people who know that folks aren't smart enough, that just comfort what he says and just keep saying it to the point where people actually believe it. And I'm getting ready to pull up something for you that I just pulled up from a very, very secure site that shows you everything that I'm going to read it for you. I'm going to read it for you so people know, like I said, we can win with truth. We just need y'all to start accepting the truth and move on with it. Take a look at this. I asked, a tariff is a tax imposed by a country on goods imported from another country. It raises the cost of goods as they enter the importing country. Okay? The first dollar sign up there with wings. And I would never want to see money with wings because I wouldn't let that shit fly away from me. It says, who actually pays for the tariffs? Importing country. Example, the U.S. placing tariffs on Chinese goods. Who's the importing country, my man TJ?
That would be the United States of America.
Yes. U.S. importer business pays the tariffs to the U.S. government at the border. The cost is usually passed on to, in bold black and white, consumers in the form of, what does it say, TJ?
Higher prices.
Higher prices. And we can stop that shit right there. So ladies and gentlemen, stop falling for the banana in the tailpipe. You know, back in the 90s, they would call it the okie doke. It is okay if you voted for Trump and you're seeing that he's a dope, he's not smart, and he only cares about rich people that kiss his butt and those that are with him in that menagerie and his ego. It's okay to say no. It's okay to arm yourself with facts and start working to make a better country. Oftentimes people, right now, TJ, we got a lot of us that feel blindsided. They feel hopeless. And God knows I feel their pain. I've got two young kids I'm having to shield and protect every day. But we can come back. and it's going to be a long, hard road. Like TJ said, it doesn't happen overnight, but there are progressive steps we can take to show resistance. And TJ, let me show you one more thing that is a form of resistance done by someone in a smaller layer of government, which was a mayor. Take a look at this.
You're not calling the president a terrorist?
No, what I'm saying is trying to hold people hostage and manipulating them to succumb to his will. That is how terrorists behave. We're not going to negotiate with terrorists.
What are your thoughts on having a meeting with the Trump administration to try and, for lack of a better phrase, kiss the ring to be able to stop the federal funds from being held back from the city of Chicago?
Well, I will just say, outside of a 2016, Cubs World Series ring, I'm not kissing a ring, okay? The President of the United States of America has an open invitation to the 5th floor of the greatest freaking city in the world, the city of Chicago. And I'm going to just be bold here for a second. There's a long history of black political leaders talking to people who may not see us as first class, trying to force your will to break the spirit of working people in order to have a conversation. Terrorism. We're not going to negotiate with terrorists. We're going to negotiate on behalf of working people in this city. And that's what American people want us to do. There's a reason why he's losing support. Now, he doesn't care. This president refuses to see our humanity. And his response to this economy is to give tax breaks and benefits to the ultra-rich while the rest of us are struggling. You got to show up for working people in this city, in this country, and not for the...
TJ, what do you think about that? Then I am going to read you precedents on how a president is not supposed to withhold allotted state and federal funds. What do you think about Mayor Johnson of Chicago standing up and just calling the president what he is?
I hadn't seen that clip, but I was very happy to watch that, because I have said for a long time now that for all of Donald Trump's flaws and, recognizing how terrible of a human being he is and the scourge he is on humanity and history and culture and the nation, I get why his fans and his supporters love him, because he's a fighter. He is. Donald Trump, you hit him, he hits you back twice as hard. He plays defense as little as possible. He's always coming after you. It doesn't matter, like you said, it doesn't matter if he knows he's wrong. He does not give a fuck. He is going to come and he's going to, hit you square in the mouth. We need a hell of a lot more of that on our side. This is like I saw this thing of this guy, I can't remember, the New York Times, I think, but he was talking about working with politicians, and something he's noticed over the years, the difference between congressmen or politicians on the right and politicians on the left. When it comes to a lot of politicians on the right, they either genuinely believe in conservative values, like they're rock rib conservatives, they grew up this way, they're small business owners or whatever they are, like whatever led them down, military stuff, whatever led them down these conservative beliefs, and they believe it and they're going to fight for it. Or they may or may not believe it, but they recognize that backing these conservative policies and at least putting on the affectation of some sort of conservative benefits them a lot. They genuinely love it. But when it comes to a lot of politicians on the left, they seem to be in politics because, hey, it's a cool gig. Look at this. I get to hang out and among people who make decisions. It's a pretty cushy job. I get to make public speeches. People come asking me for stuff. There's not nearly the cultural buy-in from the left or the left politicians as there is for the right. And it's reflected in how they behave. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Ted Cruz or whatever, what's his name with the eye patch? Dan, I can't remember. You know who I'm talking about, the guy.
Yeah, I know you're talking
I
about.
can't remember. But Dan Crenshaw, like going out there and just laying waste, just like, fireballs everywhere and just, attacking people, whether you believe it or not is irrelevant, but your voting base, your constituents see that and say, that's great. I would follow that guy into hell with a can of gas. I would run through a brick wall for that person. How many people on the left are like that? How many people on the left, they will come up and they'll pontificate the law, this, the republic, that. No, listen, there's time and place for that. Trust me, I understand. But people need to know that you are a hard charger. People need to know that you're going to stand up and you will fight for them. You can be Exhibit A, Donald Trump, you can be flawed as hell. But as long as you fight for people, for the stuff that they care about, or at least pretend to care about, you can go pretty far. It's pretty effective. And I wish we saw a lot more of that from Democrats as a whole.
Well, unfortunately, I hate to tell you, you're looking at one. You're online with one who not only can tell jokes with the best of them, but I love confrontation with, and I will call your ass a name quick to get you flustered. Because if you really check somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, they always try to do something to throw you off your game.
Yeah.
If you bully them with words, talk about her makeup, talk about how ratty her hair is, and you still are an intelligent person that knows the law, you're fighting for your people will get behind you. And as much as I hate to say it, I've done local politics and have had some success. It seems like the time is emerging for me, you, people like Destiny, and folks like that to get into politics if you can get the right people behind you, because people want a straight shooter. I think Bernie is one of the most straight shooters out there and has been straight shooter. And there are a lot of people who voted for Trump that would absolutely vote for Bernie, and they believe in two separate things. It's so just weird. They both fight. They both fight. They both are who they are, and they don't use big language. Bernie doesn't use a whole lot of big language. Bernie just says it like it is.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I remember seeing Trump is like, I don't know, like most politicians speak at around a 10th grade level, which you're supposed to. You're supposed to speak so you don't lose people and everything. And that's basically what Bernie does. Trump speaks at a 4th grade level. I don't know if you've seen the
I thought it was 5th grade.
Fifth, it is shockingly low. Like lower than you would think. Like you would think that would confuse people. For some reason it works. But then again, look at the people he's courting. But yeah, it's true that, you know, we rely on this decorum and everything, and this is the way it's gonna be. And look, there's a time and place for that. But no, like you guys got to remember the game we're playing here. Yeah, because Democrats and Republicans are not playing the same game. Democrats still think this is, you know, they're William Jennings Bryan or something, and they're going to go up and do this Mr. Smith goes to Washington type bullshit where hearts and minds.
Y'all, look, William Jennings Bryan, y'all know why I'm laughing.
Actually, you know what? William Jennings Bryan is a great example because he ran for president like 5 times and lost them all. So it's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah. So it's just like that's what they think. They think this is some sort of Aaron Sorkin television show where you go up there and you cut them down with facts and reason. And I'm all for facts and reason. I'm all for that. But the unfortunate reality is, I wish it weren't this way, folks. I'm giving you bad news, but someone has to. People don't vote on that. People don't vote on facts. They don't vote on policy. They don't vote on political ideology. They vote on vibes. They vote on vibes. Which is like what that Hispanic girl that we saw where she's like, yeah, that's my religion, my culture. I voted for him. That's actually the answer. That's why people vote that way. They're like, yeah, this is what my culture says. This is what the vibe says. I'm going for it. We put a lot more thought into this, like you should. But unfortunately, people don't work that way. And like the people who, like the Bernie to Trump voters, blew my mind when I found this because it made no sense. It really did, because I was thinking they were voting for Bernie for policy. And then I felt like, oh, wait, no, they're not. Yeah, they're voting. I mean, not today, but I mean, when it first happened. When it first happened, 10 years ago. Yeah. I was like, what? But that's when I kind of realized that, people aren't voting on policy at all. They're just voting on who makes them feel like they're starting something. But people will look at you in the eye and say, I voted for Trump because I wanted him to go in there and knock things around. And it's like, what? This is the United States government. You don't want anyone to just tear shit down left and right indiscriminately. A lot of folks do. So if you can put forth that presentation that you're going to fight, a lot of times it doesn't even matter what for. I hate saying this. It's such a but
it's the truth.
It is.
It's the truth. Thanks, Khadijah. This is Captain Planet from the 90s. You know I got a strip
I didn't see that.
of my own version. So you know where I'm going with this.
I gotta hear that.
I'm gonna let you get out of here. There's one more video of resistance, and then we're out of here for the day. If y'all like this, you gotta let us know, because I might can beg this man to come. I might be like Eddie Murphy coming to America. Beg him to come back. Check this out. This was more resistance from the week to get people inspired, and then we're gonna get out of here.
In the demand letter that the Trump administration sent to my university Friday night that became public on Monday, one of his demands was to have the school appoint, or allow him to appoint, a federal overseer who would audit every course on this campus, every department, to try to figure out if it met the ideological balance that's preferred by the Trump administration. And that federal official would then require us to hire new teachers to teach the way that Trump wants us to teach, to change our courses. This is absolute outright efforts to take over federally what is taught on American campuses. It's a move that we see in countries across the globe when dictators are trying to come into power.
Last night, the Faculty Senate at Michigan State voted that their school should join the other schools in the Big Ten in a totally non-sports related agreement. The faculty at Michigan State voted last night that their school should join with all the other schools in the Big Ten in what they're calling a mutual defense compact, a mutual academic defense compact. And what that means is kind of what it says. When Trump inevitably comes after one of the schools in the Big Ten, be it Michigan State or Rutgers or Ohio State or UCLA or USC or University of Washington or any of the other schools in that conference, the idea is that all the other schools would agree to help that school defend itself and fight back, which would mean lawyers and experts and advocacy and lobbying and public relations. They would all do it together. They would treat Trump attacking any one of those schools as an attack on all of those schools. Any school that wants to survive what Trump and Vance are doing here, what their agenda is here for American universities and colleges, any school that wants to survive what's coming their way better find a way to not have to fight alone. And so, yes, now we are seeing all kinds of colleges all across the country move toward mutual defense pacts with other schools. Basically,
what you think, brother? The resistance is starting to bubble up.
I hadn't seen that with the universities. That is great. We need a lot more recognition that no one of us is as strong as all of us. If we want if we want to fight powerful forces, we have to work with each other and work amongst ourselves, because like by yourself, you're done. You're cooked. It's why unions work so well. You know, just one person by themselves or one university versus the power of the United States government for any nonsense reason. Like Trump's willing to cut cancer funding against heart. It's just, but I know the PR, the weird thing is like with Trump is such a unique political figure that the PR for a lot of this stuff would tank most politicians, even rabid conservative ones. There's only so far people can go. But with Trump, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he does. And his fans are going to be all over him. So doing something like this would be beneficial to as many groups as possible, because you know Trump's going to come after you for some nonsense, band together and fight it. I love that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, having said that, we are out of here. That is my man, TJ. He's one of the best political talkers on TikTok. Please go follow him. He's great. And it's because of him and so many others have inspired me to get back in this thing. Y'all have followed me during the George Floyd era. I was going heavy in politics and stocks, trying to teach people what was going on, how to get better. And since then, I had just kind of lost the fire for it, because a lot of people, it wasn't enough people watching it to make me stay in it. But yeah, through TJ and some others, I've got inspired, and some people knew I was into politics and said, your voice can help. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm here. Let's get this thing going. Let's fight, and let's become part of the resistance. Don't forget to like this video, comment, subscribe. Till that next Sex is Hell political talk with me and TJ, we are out.
Later, folks.